Soldiers are still dying in Afghanistan and militants are running rampant, but the world's decision makers have turned their minds to a political solution. Among the controversial plans is the use of millions of dollars to pay off Taliban fighters rather than hunt them down. That's what was discussed ahead of the last day of the Davos meeting, but RT's Laura Emmett says concerns remain.
2,500 of the world's most powerful people attended this year for hundreds of working sessions on a huge variety of topics, from redesigning financial regulation to how to reconnect with children. As usual, talk at Davos has been influenced by events happening outside the Swiss ski resort. Events in Haiti have dominated, with Bill Clinton using his platform here to call for more aid to the earthquake-stricken nation. And the London conference on Afghanistan also made its way here to Davos. There, a pledge was made to contribute $140 million to a new trust for reintegrating Taliban militants into Afghan society. Friday saw the key players in Davos. For more, here's my report.
A new strategy for engagement in Afghanistan, in what leaders are calling a political solution to complement the military surge. And part of that strategy is a controversial decision to give nearly $140 million to buy off moderate members of the Taliban. Friday in Davos saw key figures involved in the war meet to follow up on Thursday's London conference.
Many delegates come to Davos year after year. It's hard to imagine what would have been the reaction at the World Economic Forum in 2002, just months after 9/11, if you'd said foreign ministers from 60 countries had agreed to pay the Taliban, widely believed to be connected with al-Qaeda.
UK Foreign Secretary David Miliband defends the plan as instrumental in rebuilding the Afghan nation, where nearly 10,000 British troops are currently fighting.
Well, no one's talking about bribing our way out of the insurgency. What we are talking about is the Afghan government having the proper resources to create employment, to build infrastructure, to support a redevelopment program. And for those members of the insurgency who are currently fighting against their communities, we want them in their communities.
Part of the strategy involves buying off low and mid-level Taliban fighters by offering them jobs in return for laying down their arms. But opposition leader Dr. Abdullah Abdullah says the fighters aren't for sale.
I think they have not put themselves for sale, so they will be bought in that way. I think it will be rather more sensible to reach out to the people in those areas which Taliban are operating, and not to create circumstances so the people are not leaving the government and joining the Taliban. So create better circumstances in those areas with good governance, with rule of law, with bringing justice, some developmental services.
It's certainly not a strategy that's guaranteed to work. In fact, some experts say it amounts to throwing good money after bad.
It's a common practice of all the alliance members in Afghanistan that they hand out weapons of all kinds as gifts, as payment to their Afghan proxies. And that means that these weapons end up in the market. They're being sold by the people, and then anybody can buy them, and that's how the Taliban get them.
Those on the ground in Afghanistan are unlikely to welcome the move either. US soldiers say millions of dollars are finding their way out of Afghanistan every day, and corruption is rife.
An independent report, not something that I have personal knowledge of, but the idea that $10 million of donor money is leaving Afghanistan every single day for parts unknown. It is certainly very, very possible that the same arms that have been intended to arm the Afghan National Police or for the Afghan National Army are winding up on a black market.
If that's the case and the level of corruption remains the same, it will take just 2 weeks for what officials are calling the $140 million trust fund for Afghanistan to vanish into thin mountain air. Laura Emmett, RT, Davos, Switzerland.
And Gopal writes for A Nation magazine and thinks after 8 years in Afghanistan, it's clear a political solution is the key.
One of the things that's really bred a lot of resentment and hatred amongst Afghans is the practice of U.S. soldiers going into people's homes in the middle of the night and taking away their loved ones, often on the slightest of suspicions. And often these people are taken to a series of prisons across the country, and sometimes they're released, sometimes they're held indefinitely. And it's really turned a lot of people against the Americans. It's widespread, especially in those areas where the fighting is actually happening, the south and the east of the country. 7, 8 years ago, people greeted Americans as liberators of the country, but now the tide is turning, unfortunately, because of a lot of these military actions. I agree with many Afghans that the war ultimately has needs a political solution, not a military solution. And if you talk to Afghans, they say again and again they want all the warring sides to come and sit at the negotiating table and try to come up with a peace plan instead of continuing to fight a war that's been fought for 7 or 8 years at this point. What Afghans often say is that it's more of an emphasis. When the emphasis is placed on actually trying to negotiate instead of continuing to fight the war and increasing the number of troops there, then we could start to see differences. But right now, a lot of Afghans feel frustrated because they haven't seen a shift in emphasis in U.S. policy.